put down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. Get ready for 60 minutes of wall-to-wall photography, including photo news, tips, and your photography questions in real time, with answers from your host, Olympus Visionary Joe Edelman.
Hey, that's me. I'm Joe Edelman. I'm your host for the next 90 minutes of all things photography. And as always, gang, my mission is to help photographers like you to develop a better understanding of the hows and whys behind great photography. So gang, as always, before we get going, please, I need all of you, take a moment, let your friends know that we're streaming live on YouTube right now. Facebook, Twitter, they're the fastest way to get the words out, or you can hit that share button right underneath the video, or you can share the link tog.chat/live, no www, okay? So I got a lot of people here from all over the world already. Marcus and Mark and Joe and Robert and Peter and Sven and Yoki and Sean and James is here. Lynn's here from New York. So listen, gang, do me a favor. Please check in, say hi. Let me know where you're watching from. It's always great to see where people are tuning in from. And of course, post those questions. I've got a few really good ones lined up and a couple pieces of information to share with you, but I will do my best to answer all of your questions in the next 90 minutes of our 60-minute show. So before we dig in, I got a link that was emailed to me tonight, right before I came on live, and I was gonna talk about some of my speaking engagements, but I wanna share this one right away. So this is like hot off the presses, right? So for those of you that are in North America and who are hopefully going to make it to the Photo Plus show, which will be coming up at the end of October in New York City, I wanted to share this with you. Let me bring this up on the screen, and I'm gonna give you the link here, right there in the chat window. If you use that link, you can register on this page and you get your Expo Pass for free. That's $0. It's on me, my treat, okay? So you don't have an excuse if you're worried about having to pay to get in. And if you're interested in attending the conference and the actual conference classes, you can get a 15% discount off the conference cost using the brown button link that's there. And if you're interested in signing up for the photo walk that I'm doing at Photo Plus, you find that by going to the link that you see at the bottom of this page here where it says View Joe Edelman's Speaking Schedule. If you click there, the only speaking event that's on there for me is the photo walk that I'll be doing on Friday morning. That's Friday, October 26th. It's from 9 to 11 a.m. It's a street fashion photo walk. My other presentations at Photo Plus, you will be able to get the schedule for them on my website. They're not posted yet, but the way you find my speaking schedule, because I want to tell you about some other ones I have coming up while we're waiting for everybody to get here, click on the Lectures and Workshops tab, and when that page loads, you will see everything that's coming up. It'll take a second for it to drop in here. There it is. There's the whole schedule for everything that I've got booked coming up. So here's the Photo Plus stuff, starting with Thursday the 25th, and the Fashion Walk on the 26th, and then also more talks on the 26th and 27th. So I'll tell you what I will be doing at Photo Plus. Once each day, it's in the afternoon, all 3 days, I will be presenting on the Olympus stage a talk about fashion portraiture with simple lighting and simple props. And it's a fun one. Those of you that watched my video about the talk that I did in Las Vegas at WPPI, it's the same title, but all new, never before seen shots that we're gonna do live. And I'm gonna finish that talk giving you an opportunity to shoot the same picture that I'm shooting at the end. And just to give you a little hint, there's gonna be a lot of chaos and flying stuff. So bring your cameras, don't miss it. And by the way, if you're gonna go to Photo Plus, so actually a little side note, enough about me for a second. For those of you that have an opportunity to go to Photo Plus, or even if you're gonna go to Photokina, you know, in what, a week, Photokina comes up, or any photography trade show, a little tip, take your camera, but better yet, even if you don't wanna drag your gear along, make sure you take memory cards. Always take memory cards to photography trade shows. Most of the camera manufacturers will have cameras available, especially since, you know, some of the companies have new cameras out that they want to, you know, be letting you know that you should use these and try these out. You are going to be able to test these cameras out by putting a disc in the cameras, shoot some images, give them a whirl, take your disc home, be able to look at your pictures, etc. So if you're coming to see me, definitely make sure you do that, because in addition to the talks that I'll be doing in the Olympus booth every day, at the top of every hour, I will be presenting a 15, 10 minute, 20 minute, however long it takes. Basically, I'll be hanging out in a separate part of the Olympus booth called the Olympus Portrait Experience. And I'll be doing little demos, teaching you guys little tips and tricks, posing things, lighting things. Probably going to be giving you the opportunity to try some of the same techniques that I'm using on stage, but you will be able to be about 3 feet from the models. There will be models there all day long for you to photograph. We're going to have kind of like a jungle, kind of Indiana Jones type theme to it, which is not nearly as cheesy as it sounds. I've seen the outfits and everything they're planning. It's actually really cool. I'm looking forward to it. So I will be there, and I will be accessible and available all 3 days. So I hope to see you guys. For those of you folks that are in South Florida, I just want to mention these two really quick. Next Friday, I am going to be doing a talk for Pittman Photo Supply in Miami. We'll be at the Pinecrest Gardens, which I understand is a gorgeous, beautiful place. We're going to be doing fashion portraiture, and of course I'll be talking a little bit about my switch to Olympus gear. Olympus is sending me, right? Okay, but I will have a model, I'll have a makeup artist. We're going to be working and doing a workshop there. And then the very next day, next Saturday, I'll be in Bradenton, Sarasota area for Johnson Photo Imaging, and I'll be doing 2 talks that day. It's the same talk. You can attend it in the morning or the afternoon. Check the links for both of those talks. If you're in South Florida, both of those camera stores are actually kind of incentivizing you to go. They are paid talks. They're very reasonable, but you also then get gift cards back from the camera store. So you will definitely want to check those out. And then stuff that's coming up after Photo Plus, I'm going to be in Delaware in the very beginning of November for the Horizon Photography Summit. I'll be there for 3 days. It's a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The beginning of November, I'm going to be in St. Louis, Missouri at the Crevcore Photopalooza. I'll be doing 2 talks and 2 demos there. And then in December, I will be back down to Texas, in Austin, Texas, for the Precision Camera Holiday Expo. And in between that, there's a whole bunch of Camera Club talks and all that kind of stuff. So check that stuff out. It's all listed on my website. One last piece of business, since we're doing all the business stuff, we'll get it all out of the way. I usually try to mix it in. People complain if I do it all up front, and then when I try to mix it in, I forget it. So please, humor me for one more second. For those of you that are into portraiture, which if you're following me, there's a good shot you're like into portraiture. Make sure that you check out the Get Olympus website this week. In fact, I'll put the link in the chat window for you in just a moment. And you don't have to be an Olympus shooter. So let me be clear. Yes, I'm sending you to the Olympus website. This is going to be a 3 or 4 part series of articles that I'm doing for them on how to create better portraits. And this is part 1. Every single piece of this article applies regardless of the camera brand. And even the next article, which is going to talk about like what are the best lenses and that to use, of course I'm going to reference the Olympus lenses. Duh. But I will discuss in that article focal lengths for APS-C cameras, full frame cameras, like I've told you guys before. Yeah, I'm an Olympus Visionary. That doesn't change the way I'm going to teach, and it doesn't change the fact that I'm going to teach for everybody. So a lot of you frequently come in and ask me all kinds of really in-depth questions about shooting portraits. Trust me, you don't want to miss this article, because there's not actually a single photography thing in this particular article. This article is basically the setup. It's, hey, if you're going to do a portrait session, this is the stuff that you need to be considering. This is what you should think about. And for those of you that may have seen some of my previous videos or read my previous articles about doing portraits, there's some new information in here. Believe me, I've been really digging deep. I want to make sure that I'm giving you every little piece of my process. So I hope that you'll check that out. Let me switch the screen back over here really quick, and then I will get you guys the link. I will put it in the chat window for you so that you can see that and check it out at your convenience. Sorry, let me just do the copy paste here. There we go. And yep, James, here comes that link right now. That's a shortened link, but that'll get you right to it. And of course, I will let you guys know when, the follow-up articles come out. They'll be coming out over the next couple of weeks. And I will tell you, in fact, John Edward commented a little bit earlier here in the chat window that he was checking out the Olympus Learning Center. John Edward is a Nikon guy, right? He's not an Olympus shooter. there's a lot of great articles in there, and they're not all Olympus centric. In fact, actually, most of them are not Olympus centric. Yes, they mention Olympus gear. Yes, they talk about what Olympus lenses were used, of course, but they're basically photographic technique articles. Really, really good stuff. So I would encourage you, check it out. Okay, it's a really, really great learning source. Really good stuff in there to work with. All right. So, questions. Are we ready? I got a bunch of them tonight. So seriously, go ahead, type some stuff in. I saw that there's a couple people in there. I even see there's one guy in here that wants to go ahead and get into a debate with me over depth of field. Christopher Moore, my comment is, take a hike, man. Seriously. You're not wrong in the message that you sent me. I am not going to debate you. I will simply delete you from the chat window. Here's the reason why you are wrong, though, in practice. What idiot is going to back up to make that similarity? It's not going to happen. So, Christopher, I'm asking for your respect. Just leave it be, okay? Every photography textbook in the world teaches depth of field the way that I teach it. And they do it for a practical reason and a scientifically accurate reason. So do us both a favor, leave it alone, okay? Thank you. I have better things to do than debate you. So the first question that I have tonight for all of you here, we ready? This is a good one because this has got to do with budget and not having an unlimited budget. So you guys know that I appreciate that, right? Steve Wilking asked me a question in my Facebook group earlier today. He only has the budget right now to purchase one of these two items. And the question is, does he purchase a color calibrator or a light meter? Or does he go ahead, oh, sorry, I'm reading ahead and putting accentuation where it doesn't belong. Does he purchase a color calibrator or a light meter? Both of them are important. He understands the value of both, but he's trying to prioritize. Which one should he get first? So, Steve, this is actually, it's a great question. And, you know, this is a dilemma that more people face than we talk about, right? Because we're always talking about, oh, you should have this and you should have that. And it's really easy to spend everybody's money, even though, you know, they don't have it. So, Steve, my solution to you is if I had to prioritize, I would go with a color calibrator, do the light meter secondarily. Now, if you had asked me that question 30 years ago in the film days, that would have been completely flipped around, of course. But because of the LCDs, because of the ability to preview, it is really easy for you to basically figure out what your exposure needs to be. So it's not really an issue. As far as, guys, sorry, bear with me just one sec here. I'm hitting buttons that I shouldn't be hitting. There we go. Let's do that. Okay, so we take care of that problem. Now, you're going to want to make sure that you got your color calibration right. One, so that when you're sharing stuff, and you're putting it on different, computers, phones, etc. It's going to look good. Two, especially if you're going to get any prints made, Steve, you want to be able to know that basically what you're seeing on your computer screen is going to be what you see when this stuff is printed. Okay, so the light meter, it's easy enough to work that out. That would be my advice. Okay, James Lewis had a question about marketing stuff real quick. And we only have like one or two business questions tonight. So for those of you that really don't like the business questions, you can breathe. We don't have a lot. His question is with regards to Google My Business, which is a product name from Google My Business. Okay, he has seen some cool stats on it. Plus, it's free, and he's basically asking, what are my thoughts? What do I think about it? James, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I haven't spent a lot of time researching it, but I'll tell you why. Any of those Google business products like that, where they're going to give you essentially a Google listing, you have to have a physical address associated with your business. So I work out of my home. I don't bring clients into my home. When I do client work, I go out on location. And I'm not doing nearly as much client work at this point in my career as I had been previously. So for me, the Google My Business really has no value because I would not be able to use it properly per Google's guidelines. If you are working out of a physical address that you advertise that address, then Google My Business is perfect for you. And in fact, even just a simple Google business page is perfect. But it is a requirement on those pages that you have a physical address. So that's very important, okay? So I hope that helps. Doyle Hughes has a question. This one's always near and dear to my heart. In fact, I spent a good part of today booking a makeup artist, several of them. But his question is, with regards to working with makeup artists, how do I find a good makeup artist? What questions should I ask them? What fees should I expect to pay? He knows nothing about working with them, and he knows that this is, a big part of what I do, so he's looking for some advice. So first of all, Doyle, it's a great question. Obviously, it's a question that's, kind of near and dear to my heart because it's a question that I deal with on a routine basis and talk about regularly. Let me just, there you go. You guys can see all my questions. Got the questions there? Okay. Let me switch over to my video. Okay, now you know how I organize my questions, right? Doyle, if you go to my channel here and you type in makeup artist in the little magnifying glass, in the little magnifying glass that is on the channel, not up in the search box up top, but if you type makeup artist in there, hit enter, you're going to get two videos that I did, which I would really encourage you to watch. And it's these first two that you see come up here. The first one, you need a makeup artist for great portraits, headshots, and model shots. And then the second one, what to know about working with a makeup artist for great portraits and modeling shots. Watch both of those videos. They actually go into a lot of detail about how you're going to find your makeup artist, what you should be considering, etc. But let me give you a couple little tips here. Number one, as far as finding a makeup artist, I can get you a start on that. What you want to do, I'm going to switch the screen over here, is you want to go back to my website. We were here before. At the top of every page, you're going to see this link, Resources for Models. If you click on that link, you'll see right here, Makeup Artist Directory, and you'll notice it's also on the right-hand side now. The right-hand side of the page switches. So we can pick any state. If we happen to be, I'm here in Pennsylvania, so if I'm looking for a new makeup artist, I can click on that link and it is going to take me to a directory listing of makeup artists in Pennsylvania, which then gives me links that go out to their website. Okay? Now, this is not an all-inclusive, here's every makeup artist in the United States listing. No. These are makeup artists that I have either worked with or that I have stumbled upon their work because they have submitted their information to me and asked to be included in the directory. So that's how they wind up there. Now, just because they gave me their information doesn't mean that I went ahead and automatically put them in. My criteria for listing someone, which this would also be your criteria for finding a makeup artist to work with for the first time. I go to their website. By the way, since I do want people that are doing it professionally, one of the criteria is they have to actually have a website. If they're sending me a Facebook page or an Instagram page, that's not adequate. They've got to have a website, which of course, that is not a guarantee that we're talking about a professional person, right? But it's certainly a step in the right direction. So that's one of the criteria that I use. Secondly, from there, I look at their work. If they have good quality work, and there are two factors that I'm taking into account when I say good quality work. Factor number one, I am looking to see if the makeup in the pictures that they're showing is good. In my opinion, you don't have to be an expert. Factor number two, I'm looking at the pictures. If the makeup artist in question has good images to present, they are working very hard and they are setting their standards high and they are pushing to work with better photographers. If this makeup artist has a whole portfolio that's nothing more than snapshots and really crappy pictures, that does not leave me with a good impression of their standards, right? So it doesn't mean that they're bad, but it does make me question, like, why aren't you working with better photographers? Why aren't you going out and trading with better photographers, whatever it takes to be able to improve the quality of your portfolio, right? And then from there, once you go ahead and read through or watch those videos, excuse me, boy, tonight is like the night for people having fun in the comments here. All right, so once you, sorry guys, once you go through and you watch those videos, you're also going to realize that working with a makeup artist, it's definitely a relationship, right? So ideally, the first time you work with a makeup artist, don't expect it to be like, oh my God, most amazing thing ever. There is a learning curve, and the learning curve is not you learning, it's actually both of you learning about each other. It's you learning about how that makeup artist works, it's the makeup artist learning about what you like, and it's basically building a relationship. So it takes a little bit of time and effort, but Doyle, I know you're a member of my Patreon group, which I really appreciate. I would encourage you, watch those 2 videos before Friday night if you can, and then Friday night when we do Zoom chat, if you have any follow-up questions, don't hesitate to ask, and I will gladly do my best to help you, okay? All right, so next up here on the question list, Troy Hall had a question about how do I feel about homemade scrims and when would you or would you not use one? Troy, I'm like Mr. DIY, so I'm all for anything that's homemade. Basically, you're going to use a scrim when you need it. I mean, scrims can be used to diffuse light. Scrims can also be used to kind of flag light to a degree if you're going to, try and knock some light down, but you don't want to knock it out completely. A scrim is just a modifier. You're either going to use it to diffuse light or to soften light. So in terms of like when can you and can't you, that kind of stuff. No, I mean, it's really whatever you want to do in that regard. There's not really kind of a, I don't know, should we say standard? Okay. So I wouldn't worry too much about that, but yeah, if you can make your own, man, that's awesome. Okay. All right. Next up, do I got here? Let's see. Harry Smith, what do I think of the professional Speedlight softbox? Harry, I'll be honest with you. Excuse me. I have no idea what you are referring to. Is that a brand? I'm sorry. I don't know exactly what that is. So, Roderick, when shooting a close-up of eyes, is it worth it to try to go macro and worry about blocking light and having the camera and or your head cause shadows, or just get as tight a photo as you reasonably can and then just crop to the eyes? Okay. Well, okay. So this is actually a macro photography question, right? This isn't wow, sorry guys. There's some crazy people here tonight. Okay. So this is actually a macro photography question, not a portrait question. So if you are doing a macro shot, do it with macro. Don't crop later. You guys know I'm the one that's got the video, fill the frame, right? I'm all for use all the pixels that you have available. I don't care if you're using, a 40 plus megapixel camera or you're using a 16 megapixel camera, okay? Just, fill the frame, period, okay? That would be the advice. As far as blocking the light and that kind of stuff, then, the real thing that you got to factor in there, Roderick, is how to be a good photographer. And what I mean by that is all good photography is the art of problem solving, right? So yes, I realize if you're photographing an eyeball, you're going to get in really, really close. There's a potential that you're blocking the light, etc. So that means that you have got to work on getting, you've got to work on getting your light coming in from the sides, and you've got to do everything that you possibly can to basically eliminate those shadows, get out of the way of your light. One of the other things that you can do in a situation like that, Roderick, is use a longer macro lens. So for instance, with the Olympus, I would definitely, if I was doing an eyeball, a close-up of an eyeball, I would work with the 60 millimeter, which is like 120 millimeter full frame equivalent, which allows me to back up, pick it closer. If I was working, in full frame format, then I would go, I would consider like 100 or 105 millimeter macro, because that would allow me to get, much closer without being physically closer. So that's the way I'm backing the lens up and I can get more light in there. And guys, I sincerely apologize. I'm a little distracted. If you're watching the chat, I guess I got targeted tonight. There's some people deciding to have fun to see how much crap they can put in here. And the only reason that I am being very particular about trying to get rid of it is because obviously it is archived permanently in here. So for people to come along later, I really don't want them to have to deal with that. So I'll apologize. Sven, I know you're here. Also, if you happen to see any of that stuff, please don't hesitate. And if this keeps up, I'll just have to get me some more moderators, but not your problem. Just thank you for being patient with me. So David Johnson's got a question here. would I suggest that a photographer who has been photographing for a short period of time attend photo events such as Shutterfest and WPPI and Photo Plus? David, yes, no, maybe, kind of, sort of, but at the end of the day, absolutely. So let me explain, right? Here's a big mistake that people make when they go to workshops and photography events, even when they come to mine. They go with the wrong expectations. You know, learning takes a lot of effort, right? I mean, it just does. You know, you can't watch a YouTube, you guys hear me say it all the time. Look, you can't watch my YouTube videos and think that you know what we're talking about. You got to pick up the camera and you've got to go out and you've got to use the camera. You've got to take pictures, right? I mean, that's just how it is, okay? So, you know, to me, David, the value to going to something like Shutterfest, WPPI, Photo Plus is, number one, you get to see gear firsthand. You get to, you know, touch it, lick it, sniff it, handle it, shoot with it, all that kind of stuff. So if you have things that you are legitimately interested in, then big bonus there. I was mentioning last week, if you weren't here, that one of the things I love about going to shows like Photo Plus and WPPI is I find some of the coolest little gadgets while I am at those shows. Just simply gadgets that I didn't know existed. I've talked before about the tether block that I put on the bottom of my camera to ensure that I can't pull the cord out when I'm tethering and damage the data port. That's a gadget that I found in at WPPI when I was there, not this past year, but the year before. So for me, that's where the real value comes in. Also, because of the competitiveness in the photography industry, so many of the different companies, Olympus included, are really making it worth your while to go to the expo portions, the trade shows, because they're bringing in free speakers that you can see for free. So for those of you that don't know, like when you go to Photo Plus, as I showed you in the link earlier, you can get a free pass into the expo. That's the trade show floor. That's the big part. There's also a whole educational conference, which is a great conference, but it's expensive. And now, here's where I'm going to get myself in trouble, right? So I'm going to be brutally honest with you guys, which I always try to be. If it were my money that I would be spending for you, I would think long and hard before you actually pay for the conference, for the workshops. And here's why. And now, obviously, remember, I'm supposed to be promoting this. I'm doing a photo walk. So I'm being brutally honest with you, and I'm probably going to get slapped for this. The problem with spending that kind of money for a day, you'll get to, or for the 3 days or whatever it is, you get to see a lot of great speakers with tremendous knowledge, but you're seeing all of them for a very short period of time. And so the reality of it is how much can they actually teach you in a 1.5 to 2 hour window about that topic, okay? So it's a pretty big expense. If it were my money and I had something that I wanted to learn, I would rather even spend a few dollars more, but get more one-on-one time, or go to a workshop where I'm going to have that one-on-one time that is going to be, instead of an 1.5 or 2 hours, it's going to be, you know, a day that is going to be focused on that subject. So it's got nothing to do with the quality of the speakers. There's amazing speakers going to be at Photo Plus, amazing. So it's really just a more matter of how much access am I going to get to that instructor and to what they're teaching. But in terms of, you know, you walk the trade show floor, you'll have people like Peter Hurley will be speaking, Joe McNally will be speaking, Lindsay Adler will be speaking, huge names. There's this guy named Joe Edelman, he'll be speaking, just tons of people, okay? I mean, Olympus alone, Olympus is bringing in the heavy hitters for Photo Plus. I'm like a little kid in the candy shop because there's 2 Olympus speakers that I am dying to see, and I have not seen them speak. They're both the Pulitzer Prize winners. Mr. Jay Dickman, who's a Pulitzer Prize winner and National Geographic photographer and Olympus Visionary, he'll be presenting. And also Larry Price, who is a 2-time Pulitzer Prize winner, will be presenting at Photo Plus. And all of those talks are free. They're absolutely free. So that would be my advice to you, okay? James Lewis, do I like the hardwired tether or the new wireless tethering? I like them both a lot. For my needs, wireless is not quite there yet. Remember, I'm a Tether Tools guy, right? I'm, you know, one of their ambassadors. I love their Case Air system. It's awesome, but because of the speed with which I tend to shoot and because of how heavy I shoot, it can't quite keep up with me yet. But I'll tell you what, it's getting darn close, darn close. Let's face it, guys, wireless is totally, the future. It's no different than I've gone to wireless with my lighting, cut the cord. I don't want to have to deal with cords anymore, any of that kind of stuff. So, if you do not need rapid fire shooting and you're not, filling buffers, then I would say, heck yeah, lose the wires. Absolutely. And James, I know you're doing like portraits and weddings. If you're a portrait photographer that's running a business, you're not shooting the way I am. In other words, you're not going to go in and shoot 200 images per shot, okay, so to speak, where you're going to walk out of a session doing a portrait where you've got 1,000 frames. You'll go out of business really quick that way. So I once did a talk out in Colorado that is, it was called the Meeting of the Masters. And this was probably 6 or 7 years ago. And I had the good fortune of being on the speaking docket with a photographer from just outside of New Orleans, Louisiana. His name is Kirk Vauclain. He's one of the foremost high school senior portrait photographers in the country. And I was doing a talk about, working with models and doing modeling portfolios. And I'm standing up and I'm giving my talk. And Kirk, if you've never met him or never seen him on video, he is the classic Louisiana guy, and he's a carrot top. So he's got that bright red hair and he's got that Southern Louisiana accent, the whole bit. And like me, he's a little bit loud and he's very funny. And I'm sitting there and I'm giving my talk and I mentioned how many frames I shoot in a day. And from the back of the room, all you hear is this, oh my God, in this Louisiana accent. And the guy like practically falls out of his chair. So I was like, seriously? So how many images do you shoot during a high school senior portrait session? And he stands up and he looks at me dead serious and he says, 8. And I stopped dead in my tracks and I said, 8? In the whole session? Or do you mean 8 frames per shot? He said, no. The whole session, 8 frames. And I was like, no way, man. You think I'm not buying? He's like, I swear to God. And so I then got to listen to his talk. And it was probably one of the most brilliant business talks that I have ever heard. I learned so much from that man in one afternoon. I was one of the speakers. I learned so much from that man in one afternoon about all the things that I had done wrong when I was younger as a portrait and wedding photographer. It just really, really, really brilliant. So I throw that in there just because it's worth noting. I talk about needing buffering and I talk about needing the speed. James, most portrait photographers do not need the speed. You simply don't. In which case, working, wirelessly is awesome. It's just absolutely awesome. I mean, why have the wires? I love tether tools. I love being able to, connect to the computer. But believe me, I would be thrilled if I could cut the cord. Absolutely thrilled. Okay. In fact, if you have any doubts about that, go watch my presentation from WPPI or come to Photo Plus and watch me on stage walking around with a camera that's got a cord attached to it and see how many times I either trip over the cord or wrap the cord around a light stand, just guaranteed to happen. So I would be thrilled to be able to go wireless. Absolutely. So, let's see. Ronald Warren, you thought that the slowness of tethering and sending data was just you. Yeah. So now keep in mind, Ronald, I tether all the time, but part of your problem, Ronald, it may be depending on what you are using for software. So if you're tethering with Lightroom, yes, that is like the curse of death. It's like dying a slow, painful death, waiting for images to download from your camera into Lightroom. It's the worst thing ever. Capture One works really great. And flip side of that, one of the Olympus benefits, the Olympus capture software, so that's what I use for my data transfer at this point, wicked fast. If you guys have paid attention in my videos since I switched to Olympus where you see me shooting tethered, that image is popping up right away. It's just incredible. So yeah, so Ronald, I see you just added that you've been working in Lightroom. And so believe me, I would encourage you, maybe go ahead and download the free trial of Capture One just to try it out so you realize that there is a better way to tether and it's much, much faster. So, okay. All right, so let's see here. JR, one of the guys in South Africa that shoots with Olympus and Lumix is going to see if he can arrange a demo kit for me to test. Can't wait, Randy. Hey, that's excellent, man. If you can get somebody to let you try it out. I do realize that outside the US, unfortunately, it's tough to do rentals in some countries, but I highly recommend it anytime that you can. Let's face it, camera, I don't care what brand you're purchasing, all right? I'm not just talking about Olympus. I don't care if it's Nikon, Canon, Sony, whoever it is. It's expensive. It's a major expenditure, and you need it to be right on every level. So anytime you have the ability to try out a camera or to rent it, that's another great thing even about these shows like Photo Plus. For those of you that are dying to see the R's and the Z's, and if there is indeed a new full frame Panasonic, well, guess what? They'll all be there. So, you'll be able to come and handle them and take a look at them, okay? Lamilo, is that a posing block behind me? Did I build it or bought it? It is actually, I'll step out of the way. It is essentially what I refer to as the bed box. I did an intro video in a previous TogChat way back when, where I actually showed the build of it. So this thing stands up, and it allows me to basically like have a model lean against it as a wall. And it obviously stands up and it slides as storage. It's got felt feet on the bottom, or well, actually on one of the ends, so that I can stand it up and store it. I'll give you just a real quick here. I'll spin it the other way really quick, just so you can see what I'm talking about. It's hollow underneath. Okay, so it's not quite as, and I realize you can't see all of it. Sorry, hang on. Let's back up here. That way, hopefully, you can see a little bit more underneath of it. It's heavy enough for a person to lean against it, but it's not so heavy that I can't move it around and then also pick it up and stand it up. And then it tucks into the corner of the room. So I will try to find that link. If you remember my Facebook group, Ludmilo, post a message in my Facebook group. And that way, I'll track down the link for which TogChat it was, and I'll post it in there so that you can watch that, and you'll be able to get all the breakdown and the details on it. Okay? All right. So let's see here. Chaz, you use Canon software? Yeah, and obviously I haven't actually tried Canon software myself. I've never been a Canon user. I haven't heard anything bad about it. Also haven't heard anything great about it. But if it's working for you, Chaz, that's what counts, man. That at the end of the day, that's what counts. It's not about having the best of anything. It's about having the best for you and being able to get the job done. I mean, that's straight up, that's what it's all about. So, photograph, Kirk Vauclain, VOC, and I see actually somebody typed in, and Stacy, thanks for typing that in. It's VOCLAIN, Kirk Vauclain. Awesome guy. He's a great educator, and just funny as all get out. I'm not gonna lie. The guy is absolutely hysterical. I keeping my fingers crossed that I get to cross paths and teach with him again. It was a great event, and it's the only time I've ever had the opportunity to meet him and work with him. It was a blast. So let's see here. Mr. Ghost, what is my preferred light modifier for outdoor work in sunlight, and at what distance? My preferred modifier for outdoor portrait work in sunlight and at what distance? So I don't have one. let's be straight about it here, okay? Why don't I have one? Because I don't do that much work where I'm going to put a model or a portrait subject in bright sunlight outside. I will find shade, right? I mean, that's kind of the whole gist behind the video that I did about how to shoot portraits outdoors in bright sunlight. It's going in the shade. If I were to use a modifier, so literally in the few scenarios where I do that, I will use just simple reflectors, like what you see, here, like a 5-inch reflector. That's it on a Godox, okay? But obviously it's got to be well placed. I can't just have, my subject whipping out the lights here. It's not going to be good if my subject goes like this, because now I've got a big shadow across their nose. So when I do that, I'm going to pay really, really good attention to, where's the light? Where's my subject looking? Yes, let's understand that. So if you, got one of those situations where, you just want to be able to set up a light and then, have your subject do whatever and have it look amazing, well, in that case, go with a modifier. I would take something like this out, which is a 30-inch round beauty dish. If I needed enough, if I needed some extra light out of it, I might take the center diffuser out. But basically I want to try and give you something helpful here. I think the one thing that I would say to you to avoid if you go outside is avoid umbrellas, right? Because while I love umbrellas, and you hear me tell you folks all the time, hey, if you're just starting, work with umbrellas. They're great. they are also not efficient. So when you're working close to your subject, umbrella's absolutely fine, but outdoors, you're talking about being able to kind of either match or overpower ambient light, in which case you need more efficiency and you need more power. So that's the one scenario where I would tell you that umbrella is definitely not the way to go. I would encourage you at that point, work with a softbox or something that is going to contain the light, keep the light moving forward so that you're getting the maximum hit from whatever light you do have available. Okay? Laurent L, do I use back button focus? I do not. There is nothing wrong with it, but it is not a best, it is not a worst. I just don't use it, period. Okay? So let's see. Dino, you'd like to get into studio work. You're looking to get backdrops. What material do you recommend and what size? Honestly, it depends on what you're shooting and how you like to shoot, Dino. If you are just shooting headshots and portraits, you only need like 40 to 48 inches wide. You don't need a whole lot wider than that. So that's like 4 feet or, about just under 1.5 meters. Okay. If you're going to start doing full length work, then I would definitely encourage you to go with either an 86 or like 107 inch. So that's like was it 6.5 foot or the 9 foot, size backdrops, because you're going to have a lot more room for your subject to move around. Because it's surprising, it doesn't seem like a lot, but the minute your subject starts to get the arms out, now you start to realize they're taking up a lot of space, and the further they are in front of the background, the bigger they are in relationship to the background. So then you need bigger background, right? But I use paper most of the time. I do have a few videos on my channel where I show you a crushed velour material that I use for backgrounds. Also, vinyl is great if you're going to permanently mount them. If you're going to put your backgrounds on stands of any kind, don't use vinyl. It's just too heavy. But the bonus to vinyl is you're going to pay a little bit more when you buy it, but you can wipe it down and clean it so it lasts much longer. But vinyl is something you absolutely want it hard mounted on the wall, or you want it mounted on the ceiling, okay? But you definitely do not want to put it on stands. It's just way, way too heavy, okay? So, all right, let's see here. Troy, there's the link. Okay, good. So for those of you that want to dissect that link, Troy's got the link there. So Mike Gosinski, how's the battery life in your 8200 pocket flashes? You know what? I've had no problem with it at all. They're rated for what, 500 full power flashes. I hardly ever use these things on full power. I'm usually, if I were to turn any one of these on right now, probably the brightest any one of them is a quarter power. Remember, this is a fairly small space, 13 feet wide, 27 feet long, and I'm doing, headshots and even full-length stuff. I don't need a ton of power out of them, so that just means those batteries last longer and longer. So generally speaking, if I've got a full battery charge at the beginning of the day, I'm still using that same battery for the whole day, even if I'm shooting 1,500, 2,000 frames, absolutely not a problem. But they're rated at 500 full power flashes on a charge, so, okay. So let's see, Dino, it'll be on stands, thoughts on cotton. Nothing wrong with cotton, Dino, except it wrinkles, right? So the challenge there is, if you're gonna fold this stuff up and then you hang it up, it's got wrinkles on it, so you've gotta steam it. So the nice thing about that crushed velour is I fold my crushed velour, but I can open it right up and you can't even see it. And in case you don't know what I'm talking about, please excuse the blank screen for a second, but I'll grab one of them so that I can show you guys what it looks like, okay? So here's a purple crushed velour. And so this is literally this is how I store them, okay? And then when I open it up though, it's got no folds or no creases in it. And when I clamp it onto that PVC frame that I showed you guys how I build, it stretches out perfectly. So there is, no wrinkles, none of that. So that's the thing you got to be careful of with the cotton aspect, though. That's the challenge there. Okay. Sade, yes, no longer sick. Thank you so much. It was not a fun week last week. I tell you, the whole fever thing. Geez. Bernardo Silver, why did I choose the AD200 instead of the 600 strobe? Because the 600 is a monster that nobody needs. Okay. Pause. Let me be fair. That was inappropriate, right? I don't want to start a war. I don't need 600 watt seconds. So remember when I had the honey badgers They were 320 watt seconds, and that was more light than I ever used. The average photographer does not need 600 watt seconds of light, period. And for all of you that are spending the money to get a 600 watt second strobe and then carrying around all that weight of the 600 watt second strobe, what are you going to do a year from now when YouTube and Petapixel and F-Stoppers and DIYphotography.net all declare that overpowering the sun is so early 2018? Don't do it anymore. What are you going to do then? You spent all that money for all these big strobes? So for me, the 8200's more than ample. I can buy two 8200s for the price of one 8600, and if I piggyback the two together, I'm up to a 400 watt second strobe. 400 watt seconds is more than ample for any work that I'm going to do, okay? James Lewis, do I mean the Digibees? I thought I meant the Honey Badgers. Or are you asking a question to somebody else here? So, Vagabond Wolf, I see. Are the Digibee 3200s good for outdoor? Yes. So the Digibee 400s are the 320 watt second strobes, okay? Again, they're good for outdoors as long as you know what you're doing. So the thing you guys got to understand about this whole, you want to overpower the sun stuff, right? I got to be honest with you. So, and I apologize, I'm a little distracted. I want to try and find that link for that box bed build because I see everybody's trying to track it down. And so let me see if I can get it. But here's the thing, like, if that's your reason for buying a powerful strobe because you want to overpower the sun, like, I have to be honest, for me, it's just kind of lame. But the reason is this: everybody does that. So why do it? Like, why not set yourself apart? Why not do something different? For decades, I took portraits outside in the sun, and what was the solution? The solution was go find shade. Or the solution was use fill flash. I personally don't like the look, of fill flash, okay? We took all those pictures outside in the sun. In fact, we even stopped action outside in the sun with a fill flash, and we didn't have high-speed sync, right? So it's all about understanding how to actually take a great picture. So I'm not saying high-speed sync's bad. I'm not saying having all that power is bad. But I will say, why buy the power just to do what everybody else does? Especially if you don't really understand how to put it to use. Because I promise you, inside, unless you've got like a 4,000 square foot studio, you don't need 600 watt seconds. Nobody needs 600 watt seconds. You just don't, right? It's the simple math of light and power and inverse square law. You don't need 600 watt seconds. So there's absolutely no value to having a flash that powerful in a studio setting. There's just not. Not unless you have got a massive studio and you're lighting massive groups of people. It's just, there's no value. You don't need it. So honestly, my advice is, before you dump that kind of cash and are stuck lugging around that kind of gear, because the best part of it is, right, I've got a case here. I'll show you this case, okay? This case, so you see how big this case is in relationship to me, right? There's the case. That case carries 7 Godox 8200s and all the accessories. So I've got a full-blown, hardcore studio that I can travel with in a case that small. You're not going to do that with those 8600s, okay? So you're going to go out and you're going to maybe have, 1 or 2 lights, of which you spent like $1,400 to get those 2 lights. You're going to be carrying as much weight and as much size as me, and I'm going to have 7 times the versatility that you do and the ability to do all kinds of other lighting things. So that's, that's the challenge. Hey, Mike Hagan is here. Guys, if you don't know who Mike Hagan is from out west. He's like Mr. Creative Live. He is on Creative Live all the time. Awesome author, especially if you guys are looking to get into speedlight photography. So he's the guy. So if you guys want to get some other opinions on all this high-speed sync stuff and that I talk about, there he is. He's the guy. Talk to him. High-speed sync is great, but it's not the end-all, right? If you have a need for it, awesome. But if you want to use it to its absolute best potential use, learn about what it's really doing, and even better yet, learn how to solve that problem without the high-speed sync. because then the high-speed sync becomes a convenience feature for you that is going to give you that much more range in your photography. So, all right, thanks for stopping by, Mike. Denver Pet Portraits, man, I would love to come back to Colorado. Believe me, all it takes is somebody to ask me. I'll be there, okay? I'm pretty sure regardless, I'm just trying to think of West Coast. I'm coming as far west as St. Louis in November. And then, of course, in, February, end of February, I'll make it to WPPI, which is Vegas. But yeah, if somebody asked me to come to Colorado, I'll be there for sure, okay? Let's see, Bernard Silva. How much more powerful is the 8200 compared to a simple TT685 flash unit? On average, so remember, it varies a little bit, okay? On average, the 8200s, there you go, David Barrett snuck it in there just as I was about to say it. On average, the 8200s are 3 times more powerful than a speed light. So it's quite a bit more light, okay? So, that's really kind of the nice piece of it is. So, Sven, what case is that? I know it's a Pelican, but which size? It is the, what is it, the 1650, Sven? Sorry, I should know which number it is. I want to say 1650, Sven. I'm sorry. I'll get you the number and I'll let you know in Zoom chat on Friday. The 1510 is the smaller one, which I had several of them, use them a lot. I'm pretty sure this is the 1650. Okay, so it's a little bit wider, a little bit bigger, still fits within all the airline requirements. So like when I go to Florida next week, I have 2 sets of foam inserts for it. One set carries all of my speedlight stuff and accessories. And when I say speedlights, I mean the 8200s. And then the other set of foam allows me to travel with 4 8200s, the accessories for those, and 4 compact light stands, all in that case. So like when I go to Florida, that's a whole studio. The only thing I'm missing is the background. Like that's the only thing I'm missing. I will have the whole studio with me in that case. And it fits within all the recommendations or the requirements for suitcase and luggage size and weight and all that stuff. I can get it under 50 pounds, meets all the measurements, so it's awesome. So, Art in the Dark, what is the widest millimeter lens that you recommend when doing event photography without it starting to look like a fisheye lens? Art in the Dark, it really depends on your tolerance. So this would be my opinion, because any way it goes for this is an opinion answer, right? Because you're going to get different opinions from a bunch of places. So for me, it's going to depend on what your tolerance is for distortion. So obviously we don't want, that total like woof kind of feel, and we don't want it to be completely round, not for an event. But my go-to lens, I've talked about this many, many times. My go-to lens back in the newspaper days was a 24 millimeter lens. If it was something that I could get close to, the go-to lens on my camera, in fact, I would carry 2 bodies. And back then, the 2 lenses that were always on my bodies, right? So when I'm in the car and I'm driving around, one body had a 24 millimeter f2.8, the other body had a 180 millimeter f2.8. Those were my 2 go-to lenses. And the reason I like the 24 for newspaper work is that as long as I filled the frame, that's the key, right? Fill the frame. In the newspaper business, you have got to fill the frame. That would force me to get close enough to my subject. There would be some distortion out on the edges, yes, but when somebody looked at that picture in the newspaper, it gave them the vibe that like they were there. They were in the scene. They were part of what was happening. So it kind of brought the news closer to them, okay? So in today's world, like for instance, I have the 7-14 Olympus, which I love. I don't have a major issue with keystoning that. Even the 8 millimeter full frame with the software compensations that they have in the cameras now is actually not too much distortion. But here's the key. If you're going to go that fisheye route, that really wide look Art in the Dark, it's all about how close you're going to get to your subjects, right? So we all know with that wide angle lens, if you're going to have let's just say it's 2 people even. If you got 2 people and you come in really tight, well, that means things are going to start to, explode on their face. Their noses are going to get bigger. Their faces get broader. So honestly, it's about what your tolerance is for the distortion effect. And if you're doing it for a client, well, then it's also for the client. What is their tolerance, okay? Lynn, not sure you heard right. Did I say that my light stands fit in the 1650 Pelican bag? Which light stands? So the light stands fit, yes. In this case, Here, I don't have the minute right now. Right at the moment, it is set for holding all the strobes. So here's a 1510 that I also use. Sorry. And it has light stands in it, okay? So these are travel stands. So they have the ability to, I can fold them so that they're completely flat on the ground. I can tilt them down, but they fold up nice and short, like so. This particular one's a LumaPro. You can get these in like any brand. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love LumaPro, but you can get these in pretty much any brand at all. And then if you're gonna go with this type of stand and you shoot outdoors on location, I would encourage you, and again, there's a couple different brands that have these. Here's the same type of stand, but you'll notice when I fold this one out, I'm just gonna lock it there for the sake of conversation. If you're a location photographer, the legs, here, let me make sure you can see it, the legs have spikes that you can fold down. And each leg's got a spike. So, if you're out in a field or out in grass, and you don't wanna have to carry heavy weights to anchor your stands, you can go ahead and drop those spikes in. And again, remember, there's many ways to solve a problem, right? There's never like one simple solution. This fixes everything, okay? So with the 8200s, if I'm gonna work out in a field and I've got a modifier, they now have the cable set up so that I can mount the head via hot shoe on the top of the stand, run the cable down the side of the stand, and at the base of the stand, I can put the heavy part, the brick part of the 8200. So the flash actually serves as a counterweight on the stand. Just saying. So, again, there's a lot of different ways to solve the problem, right? Okay? So that's, hopefully that answers your question with that, okay? Sven, thank you for dumping that link in there. I was not having a good time finding it, but there it is. So thank you. I appreciate you putting that in. Let's see, Ludmilo, can I share pictures of the inside of the box and the make and the model, or better yet, a video about the setup? If you're talking about the bed box, yeah, Sven put the links in there. It's all there. So, Jacob Van Dam, any advice on keeping skirts down on jumping shots? That's a good question, okay? A friend's daughter wants some cheerleading portraits, and I want the motion in her hair and the pom-poms without showing too much. Right, so there's a bunch of things going on there, right? But it's a great question, and I actually love it when people care about this, because it's something that you should care about. I have done shots with cheerleaders before where indeed, it's like a leg split, and so there's pretty much no way to avoid like the crotch shot when the cheerleader does that, right? So in every case when I've ever done a shot like that, I make it a point, I'll do the first 1 or 2 test shots until I get the good kick, because, if you're gonna have a cheerleader like do that split jump, you better get her legs parallel to the ground or higher. The higher she gets her legs above parallel, the better a jumper she is considered to be. But at a minimum, parallel. Anything below that or uneven, you're making her look bad. She will not like it. So once I've done my test shots to get the timing, I will always show her one of the images. That's the first step, and say, are you okay with that? That way it's in her face, she sees it. I've never had a cheerleader say, no, I don't like that. They're used to doing those jumps with the little booty shorts underneath their skirts, etc. Now, if you're doing this as more of like a fashion type vibe, your challenge is to do a couple of things. One, timing. So understand that if a girl's wearing a skirt and she jumps, the skirt does not start to flip out until she is on her way down. As long as she's going up, the skirt is down. So if you're having a girl jump, but you're getting her panties in the shot each time, that means you're shooting late and your timing's off. So as long as you get her on the way up or at that moment of peak where she's stopped moving before the dress continues to travel, the dress is covering everything the dress is supposed to. One of your other options would be to go ahead and shoot from a higher angle, but the challenge with shooting from a higher angle is you lose the impact of the jump. So I'll give you guys a little tip. If you have a person, even if they're just gonna do a jump like that, like just a simple little jump, if you shoot from a low enough angle, you can make that simple little jump look like they're 6 feet in the air, right? The problem is if you're shooting down on that, no, they could jump 6 feet in the air and it still doesn't look like they're that high up because the background's right behind them. So the challenge with, going to a lower or a higher angle and looking down, you solve the problem of not seeing underneath the dress, but you kind of lose the impact of the person jumping. So literally, I have learned over the years that the key to it is, and again, it's all about the physics of a jump and what the dress does. As long as your subject's going up, there's no underwear showing. It only shows when they come down. So your timing's off. You just got to get your timing down, and that's really the best way to approach it. The other way to approach it is plan in advance and don't have them work with quite as short a skirt, right? I mean, that's just, you go with a slightly longer skirt, that gives you a little bit more room to play with. But get them on the way up, and you simply don't have a problem, okay? So, I see David asked about going to a higher ground. So yeah, again, David, that's an option, but it completely changes the feel and the vibe of the picture. So, Lynn, you have a wedding in Florida in February. You need an assistant? I'll do Florida in February. But yes, it is a great way for being able to travel. And keep in mind too, there's one other thing, gang. When I'm doing my traveling and I'm talking for Olympus and that, I'm like, headed into town, headed right back out of town. I don't have a lot of time to play around. Sometimes I'm at a camera store. Like I've got talks coming up that are camera stores. I don't have to take my stands because they'll have stands at a camera store, right? Other times I need them. Depending on where you are and what your lighting needs are, you can rent stuff. I mean, one of the nice things about being in the US is these regional camera stores, they do rent gear. So of course it all depends how long are you going to be in town, how much time do you have, etc. But sometimes it's worth making a couple phone calls, going to Google, finding what camera stores are in the area of where you're traveling to if you're going to do a location wedding, that kind of stuff, and seeing what your options are for being able to rent gear. Because you can potentially actually save yourself quite a bit of money. When you look at what some of the airlines charge for being able to check extra bags, it's robbery what the airlines charge. Part of the learning curve that I've gone through since I started traveling for Olympus now is actually contacting the media departments for all the airlines, being able to get what they refer to as media access so that I'm not paying what they call accelerated rates for baggage. Because some of the airlines now, if you take 3 bags, you're paying as much as $150 a bag for your 3rd bag, which is freaking ridiculous, right? So, if you're able to register as media, you have to give them all your business credentials and all that kind of stuff, and you've got to do it all in advance. You can't do it when you get to the airport. If you do all of those things, you can at least pay the regular rate. And then, of course, if you get an airline credit card and you book your flight with that credit card, oftentimes you can get your first bag checked free, things like that. So if you do a lot of traveling, it's worth doing the research, which I've learned the hard way, as far as being able to travel with gear. But a lot of times it is, it's possible to rent where you're going, okay? Jacob, you assume she'll be wearing shorts. This is the jumping dress, but the opportunity came up because her mom did not like their shorts were showing in the official school shots last year. Yeah, and I mean, that's tough. So if this young lady is a cheerleader, Jacob, it sounds like what you're dealing with is a situation where, mom's being a little conservative. And I respect that. I'm just saying, right? Every cheerleader I've ever worked with could care less. I mean, that's why they wear those. I think they call them bloomers. That's why they wear them. But certainly, if you've got a mom for client and she doesn't want that, then your challenge is to avoid it. If the kid's going to do jumps, Jacob, and indeed she wants to do a split, then your other option is to get her to do the split and bring the pom-poms down into the middle, or to shoot it from the side. That's the other option. But believe me, the kid's not going to like it nearly as much because the kid knows what cool cheerleading shots look like. So, that's the challenge. So, Jeff, actually, Yankee Drummer, sorry, let me hit this one first. You obviously have the best of gear, but how do you feel about budget brands like Neewer for stands, sliders, cages, etc.? Yankee Drummer, I have very good gear and I'm lucky. But I will tell you right now, here in my studio, in my house, I have stuff by Neewer. I have stuff by Cowboy Studio. I have Korean brands of this and that. Almost all of my grip gear, like these arms that you see me use, these are by Manfrotto. But when it comes to the little grip gear, like the spigots and that kind of stuff, I buy all the Chinese and Korean stuff because it's so much more expensive. I honestly don't think that you can make a blanket statement, Yankee Drummer, in terms of it's okay or it's not okay. It really depends on the specific product. So I'll give you an example since you mentioned Neewer. I don't remember if it's Neewer, but it's one of the Chinese brands. I have a slider. It's a 30-inch slider that's from one of those brands. And for those of you who don't know what a slider is, that's the video gadget where basically you mount it on a tripod and you put the camera on it and you can slide the camera along, right? So when I bought that, I was stupid. I was stupid not because I bought the off-brand. I was stupid because I thought I needed 30 inches. The idea of getting an 18-inch or a 16 or a 12-inch slider to me was like, oh, no, I need to have lots of drama. I want to be able to slide for a long period of time. That was before I actually started using it and realized that if I took the time to go a full 30 inches, it was the most boring shot in the world because it took forever. And that was before I also realized that the whole idea behind making a slider work is you need something in the foreground. So if you have something in the foreground, you can slide a camera for 8 inches and it is like an epic shot, right? So I bought this 30-inch slider. It was cheap and it wasn't like horrible. But literally over the course of about 2 years, and it's metal, it's like thick, aluminum, it started to warp. So it's not flat anymore. So, if I had spent a lot more money and gotten a carbon fiber one, I wouldn't have that problem, of course. So I think you really have to kind of look at each product or each gadget that you're thinking of, Yankee Drummer, kind of on a one-by-one basis. And you've got to look at it from the standpoint of quality, of course, but also you got to look at it from the standpoint of what is your real need and what is your demand, right? Like how often are you going to use that gadget? So part of the reason why I went cheap on the slider, I wanted it because I thought it was cool, but I couldn't justify the cost of buying a really good slider, right? Because you could spend a couple grand on sliders. And I'm not even talking motorized, I'm just talking basic sliders. They're crazy. So, at the end of the day, it served its purpose well, but it was also kind of very uninformed. So that's the real challenge with gear, is trying to get the gear acquisition syndrome out of the way. Do your research, and then you just got to be honest with you in terms of how valuable is this piece of gear to me? Is it worth spending the extra money because I'm going to use it all the time and I need it to last forever? Or can I buy cheap and for as often as I'm going to use it, this will work out great. That's kind of the idea. So, let's see. Lewis, just looked into going to my workshop at Fordham University in October. Checked the website and you didn't see it. It's a sold out. Lewis, I hate to tell you, it was 2 weeks ago. It happened. It was September. I was already there. I'm sorry. I was already there. Come see me at Photo Plus. If you can make it to Fordham, come see me at Photo Plus in October for sure. Okay? And make sure you say hi. All right? Watching from Los Angeles. Sal, how you doing? Flashpoint 360 is 2 stops, 2/3 for full power, more for full power than your Canon 580EX. Are you saying the 360 and the 8300 has about the same power output? 8200. That sounds like it's potentially about right. Yeah, I think, I don't know for a fact, so let me be really clear, Sal. From what I've been told, my understanding is that the 8200 is slightly more powerful than the 360, but I never owned a 360. I don't have one, so I can't compare it. But I will tell you that anybody and everybody you talk to with the 8200s will tell you they're basically three stops more powerful than the average speedlight. So that's what you're looking at there. Okay. Yankee Drummer, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. Okay. Hope to see you back again. So let's see here. Going back up. Jeff, when shooting a model outdoors and overpowering ambient light with off-camera flash and metering for the ambient, is it spot, center, weighted, or evaluate? Well, I'm going to make a little assumption here, Jeff, about the way you're asking this question, which, by the way, this is a really gutsy question after everything I said so far tonight, but I'll deal with it. I'm going to say none of the above because I think you're asking me the question backwards. Let me explain, right? If you want to overpower the ambient with off-camera flash, you are not going to be metering your subject with your camera. You're going to be metering the ambient with your camera. In which case, I would tell you use whichever version you normally use. Like, this may shock some of you. So my camera's light meters are set to center weighted, metering, okay? And guys, this is really bad. I'm not sure exactly what Olympus calls it. That's how often I worry about this feature, but this is my point. I never change the metering structure in my cameras, ever. So I will tell you totally honestly, whatever the default metering is for the Olympus OMD EM1 Mark II, that's what mine's set at. I have never changed it because I'm shooting digital. I'm shooting with an electronic viewfinder. I can see my exposure. right? So I don't need to worry about it. And even if I'm shooting with a DSLR, you know, if I'm one of those photographers that I still haven't crossed over into the EVF world, you're chimping your images. So if you're shooting outside overpowering the sun, your metering is for the ambient light. And indeed, what you want to do, Jeff, is you want to meter the ambient first. You're always going to establish what is the proper exposure for my background. And you need to know that because you need to know what aperture are you shooting at, right? You've got to know what aperture you're working at. And then when you add the flash in, the idea is to bring the flash power up or down to get it where you want it in relationship to the ambient. So based on what you're describing, Anthony, thank you so much. I really appreciate the super chat. Thank you. So, Jeff, based on what you're describing, you're going to want that flash to be slightly brighter than the ambient, but you need to know what the ambient is first. So, you know, you could use spot center weighted or, you know, evaluate it, but I just evaluate it. I look at it and see what's there. But again, I don't do this often enough that I ever worry about it. And I definitely never change the metering system in my camera. I have no reason to. Keep in mind, most of the time I am in the studio, but even when I'm not, I don't like to have to play with my gear any more than necessary. Since it's digital, I see the results right away. I can, you know, make whatever changes I need to make. There's no reason for me to really have to change that around all the time. So, okay. So let's see here. Alan, what is the difference in shooting BNW or changing to BNW in Lightroom? Big difference. So obviously, if you're shooting RAW, Alan, you're shooting color no matter what. So even if you set your camera's shooting profile to black and white or monochrome, whatever your particular camera brand calls it, you're still shooting a color image if you're shooting RAW. And that's exactly what I recommend you do. However, when I'm out shooting or when I'm in the studio shooting, if I have a black and white image in my head, absolutely, I will change the color profile in the camera to black and white, and 100% of the time, I will push the contrast in that black and white profile up to maximum. What that's going to give me on my LCD preview or in my EVF viewfinder, it's going to give me an image that looks like it was shot with my favorite Tri-X black and white film. Now, what is the value of doing that? The value is this. For those of you that are old enough, like me, to have been around back in the film days, especially if you shot color transparencies, you know that you would light the scene and expose it one way if you were shooting color transparency film, and you would light it and expose it another way if you were shooting black and white. So I still have the same value. We have these great one-click presets for switching to black and white, but a good black and white shot is still going to be lit differently and exposed differently than a color shot. So for me, I'm going to actually shoot it that way in camera, knowing that if I change my mind, I've got the color version there and I can always go back. Langston Bull, thank you so much for the super chat. I really, really appreciate it. And awesome, you're not dragging that 8600 around so much, man. That's great. Listen, the 8600 is an awesome flash. So the gas side of me, gear acquisition syndrome, really wants to pull the trigger just to have one. But realistically, I will probably purchase one 8400 that they just came out with. Again, 600 watt seconds, it's just a ton of light. And probably not more than once a year, if that, do I have a need for that much light. And it never really phases me because I know there's other ways to solve the problem, right? And so that's it. So again, I'm not dissing the 600 watt seconds, I'm just making a point like, do you really need that much light? That's the thing. So Langston, I'm glad that's helping out. And hey, anytime you can travel lighter, I mean, look at my switch to Olympus, right? Anytime you can travel lighter and with less gear, or better yet, travel lighter and take as much gear. You know, ironically, I travel with more gear now with my Olympus than I used to with my Nikon, and it still is less weight. That's what I love about it. So it's awesome. It's totally the way to go. And this is one of the luxuries that we have with all camera gear right now, especially on the accessory side and that. Things are getting smaller, they're getting lighter, they're getting easier. This is such an awesome time to be a photographer. I've never been one of those people that's always looking backwards and saying, gosh, you know, it was so good then. Yeah, I'm thrilled that I had all the experiences I had, but with the technology we have now and how small stuff is and what we can do with it, my God, this is like the best. It's the best. So yeah, I think that's great. Chaz Maz, what make and model of the portable light stands, nice and small when folded? All the ones I have are, well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I have two brands. Most of mine are the LumaPro. It's Lumopro. I also have a couple of the Manfrottos that I bought years ago and spent way too much money on. And again, I say this all the time. I'll probably wind up in an elevator now with the Manfrotto people at Photo Plus. It happened to me last year with the folks at Westcott. I walked into an elevator. Everybody had a Westcott name tag on. I'm like, oh God, I'm never going to make it off the elevator. These are two companies that make incredible gear. High quality, really good gear. They're just grossly overpriced, period. And I won't back down from that. I won't apologize for that. So in both cases, Manfrotto and Westcott, you can buy off brands. You know, I hate to say the word knockoffs, but in some cases, like for instance, the PhotoFlex Rapidome compared to the Westcott Rapid Box, not only is the Rapidome a ton less expensive, it comes with the grid, which is like an extra $100 on the Westcott. Like, why? Why would you spend that money? So, you know, the portable sand sanitizers, there's a lot of companies that make them now. I know that LumaPro has dropped one of theirs. I don't remember which one it is. But yeah, there's a lot of options for those out there. And you know, remember gang, the trick with light stands, I've talked about this on several TogChats. So let me just say this again, because I'm sorry, I love you guys, but this is a place where I find photographers are so damn lazy. Don't be so damn lazy, right? Even if you go to Amazon and look for light stands, scroll down to the specs. And even if it's a cheap, newer light stand, it will tell you how tall it extends and how short it is when it collapses. So if you have a case, it's really easy to figure out, will this light stand fit in my case when it's collapsed? It will also tell you, even on Amazon, what is the maximum weight that that stand is rated to support. Now, if you don't know what you need to support, well, duh, don't buy the stand. Go look it up. If you're using a Godox 8200, go to Amazon or go to B&H, look what the weight is, the product weight, not the shipping weight, the product weight of the unit. And if you buy a modifier, if it's a softbox or an umbrella, look at what the product weight is. Add those two things together, that's what your light stand needs to support. You know, the whole idea that, oh my God, you gotta have C-stands, like everything's gotta be C-stands. I told you guys last week, this is the first C-stand that I've ever purchased in my whole life, and it's never held a light, ever. It holds my laptop. C-stands are bulky, they're heavy, and they're ridiculous unless you really need the strength and the power of a C-stand. Most of you don't. Even those Godox 8600s, they don't need C-stands. It's just a good heavy-duty light stand is more than adequate. So there's really no guesswork when it comes to light stands. There's no guesswork. Look at the types of knobs. Is it a knob? Is it a click? You know, what are the features you want? Do you want gas-filled so that you release it? It's not going to go boom. Okay, if you don't have a gas-filled stand, you release it, and you got a light sitting on top, slam, it's going right down. So those are kind of all the things that you want to consider. Okay. Hey Joe, will I be checking out the new mag ring? DMAC, probably not, but no disrespect towards MagMod, they're great. If they send me one, I'll check it out. But I don't really have a use for it. You know, I hate to say it because I'm the guy that was not happy about the 8200s when I first got my hands on one. But, you know, the more I've gotten to use them, and I'm not sponsored by them, they haven't given me any, they're not free, none of that stuff. I really like what, you know, I can do with the 8200s, and especially now with the new round head, they have their own magnetic, you know, mods that go on it. MagMod is, I have no doubt that light is going to sell, that mag ring is going to sell like gangbusters, that whole setup. And I know Spencer, the gentleman who designed MagMod, I have no doubt that he is going to come out with some really, really cool mods that are going to continue to build on that system. But I also have no doubt that you're going to see a lot of companies copy it, because while he can trademark and patent his designs, you can't patent a magnet. And so, you know, it's interesting because it's so revolutionary. It's one of those ideas that's like, duh, why didn't I think of that? It's so stupidly obvious, right? I mean, it's brilliant. So you're going to see a lot of companies that are going to be, you know, following suit with the magnets and doing that. So I literally do think that design is going to be, you know, revolutionary in terms of what it does for the industry. Ludmila, can I tell you more about the travel sets? I had them out before. Where were you guys at? So here, all right. There's two kinds. these are both, and again, gang, you can find these in about 6 different brands, right? So these are LumaPros, and I saw somebody type in a little while ago, the LumaPro is only available in the US, and I believe that is correct, okay? I don't know all the other brands. Just go spend 10 minutes on Amazon, all right? Type in compact travel light stands. So this one is the basic one. The one, if you shoot location stuff, if you ever like out in fields and that kind of stuff, go with one of these. It's the same type of stand. And again, you can put the lights flat, or you can, drop them down like you would a regular light stand. Now, keep in mind though, these are compact stands. So I would not put an AD600 on one of these, but I don't have to because I don't own one, right? But what is nice about these stands, if you shoot outdoors on locations, they have spikes in the leg. There's the spike, okay? So each leg's got a spike. So you can take these and you can drop them down into the ground, and you don't need to carry as much in terms of counterweights. So, these are not super heavy duty stands. If you're one of those photographers that wants to take a speed light and put a 5-foot octadome on it, don't buy these stands. Once again, as I just said a minute ago, when you buy your stands, look at what the weight rating is, and then go add up the weight of the gear that you're going to put on it, the modifier and the light unit, and see if it's designed to handle it. That's really all you got to do, okay? Ken Preston, C-stands kind of suck actually. They're built to last and difficult to transport, and Ken should know, he lives with C-stands. They are. I mean, they're great when you have gear that needs that kind of support. But other than that, C-stands are, for most still photographers, C-stands are just not, needed at all. Okay. So, Chaz Maz found Pixapro. Yeah,